I don't know how, and I don't know under what economy it's possible, but I honestly believe somebody took my rights to due process along with my writ of habeas corpus, and they literally used it for their own purposes. It isn't like you came across a case and you saw that it made an argument, and so you cited it in your own case. It's as if literally somehow they thought they were entitled to take my reports to the federal government or my reports to local agencies or my actual legal filings and erase that it was mine and make it theirs. I think at some point years ago, somebody I used to work with got busted for doing something illegal. And because I was working with them at the time, I became a scapegoat in a way. And they were able to cut some sort of deal, and whatever was supposedly my responsibility was hushed up. And I think that they were probably involved in something when they were younger that was horrible, that somebody did something very wrong to them. But they never disclosed that to me. And there were very significant racial implications. And in some manner, I think because I came from the military, it came from a military background, that it was okay to make me a scapegoat as if somehow, because of where I came from, I owed them reparations or that extraction or appropriation of my life and what I did personally was justified because I owed some sort of reparation based on some analysis of what I came from. So we are where we are right now. And no one has ever acknowledged this. As a matter of fact, nobody's talked to me at all for years. But I've tracked how my reports have been recirculated for local budgets and the federal budget. I've tracked how other people are running some sort of account concurrent to me and then get some promotion or even get elected to public office using what used to be my campaign before my websites and my Facebook was stolen, somehow just disappeared. And now we are where we are. Last night I watched a video from a woman who was a nurse, is a nurse, and was in the army. She discussed how she had served in Iraq. And I believe everything she said, and I believe she is a trained professional who is competent and capable. And it is devastating. The last thing that was part of this testimonial of hers was she was talking about how she was in with a patient and the patient was laughing and seemed to be recovering, and so she was hopeful that he might get released, and then she was assigned automatically to another unit away from him, and within 20 minutes of her reassignment she heard a coding and he died. And she was devastated to think that that one patient that she'd been able to work with, who might actually recover, like she might actually be able to watch this person recover, just ended up dying. And it was blamed on some student that was doing some sort of training, making an accident. I know what that's like. I've seen it too. I've been in shelter after shelter after shelter where young people, usually young people of color, in college, right out of college, are saying, I'm just doing my job. I'm just following orders. And I'll be like, I know I'm white, but I used to work here doing some things. I used to work here. This is the policy. Yeah, I know, but somebody else told us that we got to do it this way. And now we're years down the road. And before that, 10 years before that, I was told as a white woman, I had white privilege. And because I had white privilege, I needed to respect the leadership of women of color. And it was going to take a while for them to trust me. But in the meantime, I had to get the money. And I had to keep the books. And when I would say, look, I don't have the paperwork I need to be able to account for this, I don't have the receipt. Where did this go? Where did this come from? I was told, well, sometimes people lose things. I mean, they're busy, it's high risk. Years later, after other things happen, I'm told, well, when you were working with us, you had some problems with the accounting, and we had to cover for you because it put a very bad position for us. Well, see, this is the problem. My father, when he was in the military, worked on international transportation related issues. Let's put it that way. And everything about my experience in the last 5 years has been about me getting an opportunity, but them wanting to see a crafty way I can illegally hook up transportation options because they're not going to give me access to a legitimate way to get transport. I'm supposed to hijack something. Or I'm supposed to agree to accept transportation while transporting something illegal, like a chemical or a drug. And when I say I'm not accepting the drugs, there's no longer a purpose for me. This is why now we're in the situation that we're in. I was in a shelter and I watched how various aspects of the city were so happy. Texas loves its defense industry. Dallas, I learned before I came to Dallas from an elder woman. I was at a shelter with an elder woman who was trying to get an F-22. You know what an F-22 is? An F-22 is a specific kind of walker. It's a mobility assistance device. She was trying to get Social Security to help her get a walker. Now, she was a white woman, but other people in this shelter who were not white were getting what they needed, but she had to wait. She told me her husband, during World War II, was responsible for repairing ships that were damaged in the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Apparently, ships that were damaged in Pearl Harbor were towed through the Panama Canal up to the Gulf of Mexico and down by around Galveston and other parts of Texas around there. There was almost like a boneyard of old ships or ships that had been destroyed or had been damaged at the Pearl Harbor bombing. And his job was to repair them. That's what he did. That was her benefits as his wife. That was also part of her Social Security. She couldn't get what she needed from her Social Security. They kept putting her through some loop, delaying it, talking about what a crotchety old white woman she was. By the time I left, she hadn't gotten her F-22. But other people did. This is genocide. Call it like it is. At some point, it didn't matter what your ancestors actually did. It didn't matter who you actually were. Somebody developed some system of race quota and determined certain white-skinned people with certain kinds of political capital in their family, not even about what they did, just by virtue of their bloodline that somebody else could prove through a blood test that they owed some other group of people. And it didn't matter what you actually did. It didn't matter who you actually are. It didn't matter where you stood if you fit the demographic profile. There are certain genes they want and feel entitled to. It's part of what happened during the Obama administration no one's talking about. No one's talked about GenBank. No one's talking what really was going on with the Paris Climate Accords and why during Davos, when the Paris Climate Accord contributions by the United States had not been made, nobody said anything about 50 people being killed by an alleged drone strike at a refugee camp in Kenya. Nobody said anything about that. Now we're supposed to be upset about racial justice. But who's been talking about the strategic change of command of demographics in cities that had problems with police brutality, but even though they got a new demographic experience indicator in the head position, did not actually address police brutality? Nobody's addressing the systemization of the hierarchization of how this racialization pans out and how long you have to fulfill certain behavior terms in the expression of your race before then the cranks start turning and then your race becomes available for some other option. I have reports on this. It was in my legal filing, but somebody literally swapped out the white woman that was told she was not allowed to be in any sort of programmatic leadership because she was white and put in a black woman who was discriminated against because she was black. They did this years ago. And so my life since then has been invisibilized, and I've been paying somebody else's debts while I'm supposed to be acknowledging the leadership of black women. But I don't get to even see black women in leadership. I don't even get to see black men in leadership. I see caricaturizations of some very, very, very bad programming that's been automated. And if they don't stop it and call it out for what it is, it will lead to genocide. And it won't be my people. You already genocided my people. I'm the last Indian from my tribe. I have nothing left to lose. I never got the blood test for myself. I never played the race quota game. You can't take anything more from me than you could have given me. You're the one that wanted to make it a race game. I got nothing to lose.